Where is the moment we need it the most? You kick up the leaves and the magic is lost.
As many know, unemployment in the U.S. has reached record highs in the past years. Business establishments in the USA added only to 115,000 jobs during the month of April, and the United States unemployment rate was down to 8.1% from 8.2%. The decrease in unemployment rate became possible as more people decided to give up looking for work. The dramatic loss of jobs across the country led me to question, what does the government have to do with this? Unemployment has a direct correlation with the desire for employers and businesses to hire new employees. Therefore, my question involved into how do federal and state regulations affect companies' incentive to hire? The more high income and payroll taxes that are involved in hiring employees causes a decrease in the employer's incentive to hire because the higher tax regimen. The fewer amount of people are attracted to do business because of the amount of money lost. Therefore, less business owners are hiring, causing a decrease in the amount of jobs being created. To find out more information, I talked and worked with Weston resident and small business owner Dan Santangelo. Dan owns Santangelo Landscaping and Santangelo Construction of Weston. While working with Dan Santangelo, I visited the offices of the construction and landscaping business and worked on the computers within the office. I also visited actual work sites to see the physical construction and landscape work that the Santangelo company does, and also to shadow how Dan works with his employees and manages the staff in and outside the office. I also had the opportunity to sit in on a town meeting to see the process that goes into home construction and how many permits need to get passed in order to start building.
That we don't really know if that's the final design for the house. This is a rubber stamp of what they showed before on 72. So it could, the house design could be different. So all we're concerned about is where the opening of the wall is.
This showed me that businesses have to have a strong relationship with local government and have to have good workers. But that ties into the low incentive to hire. Even though many reliable workers are needed in construction and landscape business, it is hard to obtain these workers when the high taxes make many business owners reluctant to hire. I interviewed Dan to have him explain the troubles that many business owners, like himself, face when employing and his issues with the current government's way of dealing with the strong disincentive that employers have to hire. How do federal and state regulations affect a company's ability to hire?
Well, I think, as we discussed earlier, that the more burden that the federal and local governments put on employers, the harder it is for them to hire employees because it raises their costs and affects their bottom line. And so I think it's very difficult for companies to maintain their bottom line if government overregulates or puts too much burden on the employer. For example, mandates like an employer has to give a certain amount of paid vacation, that would be a regulation that I think would hurt an employer's ability to hire more people, or setting a certain pay rate for a certain industry. I think that also could affect an employer's ability to hire additional people or maintain the employees he has.
Do you think that payroll tax has affected employment?
Well, I think the higher the payroll tax, the less likely an employer would put on an additional employee. I think the lower the payroll tax, so for example, let's say a company is really at their maximum output. If the match is so great that it's a disincentive to hire another employee, he could sub out that work, he could outsource that work. He'll find creative ways to get that work done, but not by hiring additional employees, which I think is a major disincentive.
What do you think the government should do to raise the incentive?
Well, I think they have to talk to business owners and figure out the right balance. It's all a balance. I think it's just so easy for the government to raise revenues by putting it on the backs of the employers It's just the easy way out, rather than doing the tough things and figure out why employers aren't hiring, what are the disincentives, in dealing with that. It's just really a lazy way of raising revenue. Just, put it on the backs of the employers and let them deal with it, not realizing that 5, 10, 15 years down the road, they have a major unemployment issue on their hands.
Has your personal business seen a direct impact from the employment concerns?
The difficult thing for my business is I'm a small local business, and I've had the same employees for 10, 15, and 20 years. It's a little more difficult because it's almost like family. So we haven't had a lot of turnover, but it hasn't been easy over the last 5 years. If I were a large business, 100 or more employees, I think it would be a lot easier to make that direct correlation between those expenses and my bottom line, and maybe downside by 10 or 15%. Or if I had that many employees and I was in the manufacturing business, it would be a decision where I would maybe have to move out of Massachusetts and go to a lower taxed area like New Hampshire, or maybe even out of the country. But I'm in the construction business. It's a little different.
Payroll tax is defined as taxes that employers are required to pay when they pay their staff and their salaries. These payroll taxes generally fall into two categories. There are deductions from an employee's wages and also taxes paid by the employer based on the employee's wages. The payroll tax is the second most important tax in the United States, normally bringing in almost $900 billion a year through a combination of taxes on employers and employees. Most employees don't realize it, but most workers are paying more payroll taxes than they pay in federal income taxes. This policy contributes to much less people working. Taxation has a direct impact on the performance of entrepreneurial business. With a high tax regimen, few people are attracted to do business. A higher tax especially affects small businesses that are yet to find a strong footing in the market. Dan Santangelo, along with many other business owners, believes that government and employees have to have a balance in order to enhance the ability to hire and decrease the unemployment rate. Small businesses such as Dan's construction and landscaping business face trouble with the government because government regulations restrict what businesses can and can't do, and sometimes increase the cost of doing business. More government regulations correlate to less incentive to hire once cost of employees gets too high. One way that the community has tried to help this situation is by participating in Small Business Saturday. Small Business Saturday is a day to celebrate and support small businesses. It's an American shopping holiday held on the Saturday after Thanksgiving during one of the busiest shopping periods of the year.
You get your coffee here. You get your haircut here. You find that certain thing you were looking for here. But actually, you get so much more. When you shop at these small local businesses, you support all the things that make your community great. The money you spend here stays here, in this place you call your neighborhood. Small Business Saturday is November 30th. Get out and shop small.
My experience in working in a small business environment with Dan Santangelo and in seeing how good, hardworking employees are necessary for small business success, I have learned that with lack of incentive to hire new employees, employers are put at a standstill. The government needs to reevaluate their income taxes in order to generate more jobs and to help small businesses around the country prosper without losing money to the government.